So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this Connecting Scotland webinar as part of Safer Internet Day 2022. Safer Internet Day is organised in the UK by the UK Safer Internet Centre, and the theme for this year is All Fun and Games, Exploring Respect and Relationships Online. So my name's Aaron. I'm Digital Participation Manager at SCDO and part of the Connecting Scotland delivery team. And we're really grateful today to have our guest speakers along from Police Scotland from the Cybercrime Harm Prevention team. So we've got PC Andrew Law and PC Mark Gordon, who are going to give some input today. So without further ado, I will hand over to Andrew and Mark, and they're going to talk us through some insights today, and we'll do questions and answers at the end of their input. So you can pop questions in the chat panel as we go along, and I can facilitate those questions after their input. So Andrew and Mark, over to you.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. Just a quick explainer as to why you can only see me. We've been having some technical issues in the lead up to the presentation. So Andy is just a disembodied voice in the ether somewhere today. So he will be speaking through the presentation, and he'll be doing his crisp a bit when he'll say next slide please, and I'll be sitting here controlling the slides. So as Aaron says, we'll get through some questions at the end as well. So if you just bear with me, I'll share the screen, and Andy, if you're good to go, then just let me know.
Yeah, that's perfect, Mark. Thanks very much, and a very good morning, everyone. Thanks, Aaron, for inviting us along today. As we say, myself and Mark are police officers with Police Scotland. Our job is about harm prevention in the online forum. So we cover everything from children issues, sexual exploitation online, to ransomware for businesses. We support businesses and give them advice on how to stop it happening and how to recover from it happening. So we've got a wide remit, but this is one of our passions, is talking about young people, and obviously with the audience that we'll have here, digital champions and frontline workers, you're the ideal audience, just so that we can touch base with you, give you some hints and tips that we've seen. And also, if you've got information for us, please share it with us, because we're not all over the internet. Nobody is. So if you've got some tips and hints for us, we would very much appreciate it. So Mark, we'll move on to the next slide, please. And as Aaron said there, today it is all part of Safer Internet Day, and this year is really about young people, and it's all about exploring respect and relationships online, and make sure that everyone is safe when they go online. We have a wee saying amongst our team, and it's the 3 R's. So we use the 3 R's throughout presentations and when we're talking online. It stands for recognise. And that's just recognising the dangers online, be it not knowing who you're speaking to, being it scams, anything at all, anything that you're not sure about, recognising what's online that may be a little bit suspect to you. And then we talk about rejecting it. If they're asking you to click on links, if they're asking you to become their friend, just say no. If you're not happy with it, just say no. And the final R is report. Now, report doesn't mean phone the police straight away. Report means if you think it's dodgy, if you don't like it, speak to someone, be it a friend, a carer, a colleague, family members, and just say, if you're not sure about it, they'll be the same. So try to get that information across everyone when you're doing it. So the 3 R's, recognise, reject, and report. But overall, I've got to say that we are desperate to make the internet a safer place, but it is an amazing place for everyone. There is so much good out there. We all hear about the bad things about the internet, but we have to change that around as well and talk about the really fantastic opportunities that we have online as well. So hopefully today we'll give you a little flavour of both sides of the coin. Next slide, Mark. And again, so social media, I'm going to really concentrate on social media today, simply because social media is where all of this is taking place. So I've got a definition on board there, all about social media. And basically, it's any interactive technologies that facilitate the creation or sharing of ideas, information, interests. And it can be either visual or operate anywhere on the internet. So we're talking about, you know, web-based apps, we're talking about desktops, we're talking about on our phones, and it covers everything. So I've got a few of the main popular social media logos on board there, but this is the way our young people are communicating with each other, and are spending so much of their young lives online. We really need to make sure that we are up with what the young people are doing to give them a better idea of protecting them. And when I say about recognising the dangers, every child is different. And what we've got to do is make sure they all understand the dangers are online, how to do it safely, and what they should do if they're not sure. Next slide, Mark. So social media, most social media will have a minimum age limit of 13. And that's this law that I'm referring to here is an American law. And the reason I've done that is most of our social media companies are based in America. They're hosted in America. We have some in China, some in Korea, etc. But in the EU and in the UK, we have the same type of law, which says no internet service provider are allowed to collect data on any person under the age of 13. And that means all the bots that are hidden behind there, they collect who you are, what you're liking, they're not allowed to do that, which is why there's an age limit of 13 for most of our social media. Some it's actually more than that. For example, WhatsApp, you're supposed to be 16 and over. However, we live in the real world. We've got young children going on from 6, 7 years old who are regularly on social media. So next slide, Mark. So I've got some stats here for everyone, and I'm just going to pick a couple of them. But if you look at the first one, a quarter of 3-year-olds have their own tablet to go on the internet with. Now you think about that. We teach our kids how to wash their face, how to cross the road, how to ride a bike. But how many of us actually tell our kids how to be safe online? And we just say, oh, give them a device, let them play with it, let them find their own way. But we can't do that without putting the protection in for these young children. And it starts before school, as you can see. So some of the other things, and this is all about the changing attitudes between our generation and the younger generation now. I have a 10-year-old son. I can remember growing up, we had 3 TV channels. We got to watch the children's programs between 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock, and that was it. Nowadays, kids don't even watch the television. All of their consumption is video on demand. You know, your YouTube videos, your WhatsApp videos, your TikTok videos, and they're constantly wanting to watch something now. They don't wait until 7:30 for Coronation Street coming on. If they want to watch something, they want to watch it now. And that means that they want everything available at their fingertips. And I mean, children nowadays, when I was young growing up, and a lot of people were the same, we looked up to footballers, musicians, famous people. But younger people now are actually seeing what we call vloggers next door, your nano, your local influencers who are becoming highly popular. And these young children are really looking to influence other people's. And we'll touch on that a little bit later. But this is a prime example, this last one, about why the internet is such an amazing place, especially for young people. 1 in 10 young people is now active online, signing online petitions, joining local groups, being active in their community, trying to change it for the better. I just think that's a wonderful platform for young people. It builds their confidence to no end. So I don't want people thinking that the online environment is always a dangerous place for kids, because you will find out that it's a great place also. Next slide, Mark. And this is a bit where I've said here is parents being parents. But when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about being a digital parent. I'm not just being an adult parent, because we have young people under care. We have young people in different situations. Sometimes they don't have the parents or carers who are confident to speak to them about what happens online. So these are my top tips, and these start from any age right up until, you know, they're in their 20s and 30s, still talk about this. So my top tips for you are: be informed, keep up to date with the online trends and the challenges that children and young people are facing. And when I say children and young people, that's anyone from 3 years old up to, say, 30 years old. You know, have open conversations. So talk to your children about what they like doing online, what they enjoy doing, where they like to go, who they're talking with. But when you're doing that, talk about the risks there. Because kids will say, you know, or someone said a bad word to me, or someone used foul language at me, or all the way up to cyberbullying, to other things. And what we need to do, every child is different. Every child can handle boundaries better than other children. So what we have to do is do it individually for the children. I can't tell you what's the best way to talk to your child and what you think they need and what you don't need. That's up to you. But having that conversation is the most important thing that you can have together. Explore together. Spend a wee hour of your day with your child online and see what they're doing. Interact with them, play a game with them. It actually builds your confidence online as well as the young people. And that way, they're used to seeing you online with them, and they'll communicate with you, and they'll tell you more about the games that they're playing and what's actually happening in them, all about, you know, in-app balance and buying things. But again, establish balance and boundaries. If there was certain apps that you don't want your child to go into, explain why, but be forceful and tell them you can't go into that. We wouldn't allow a 7-year-old to go off to the pub yourself and buy a pint of lager or something. You know, that just doesn't happen. So in the exact same thing, there are dangers online, and we're there to protect them. So talk about boundaries, but why we're doing it. The next couple are, we will go into them in a wee bit more discussion, but monitor activity. I don't mean spying on kids, but just if they're going on somewhere that you're not happy with, just stay with them. Make sure that they're doing it right. Give them a little bit of supervision. You'll know when you can trust them online, and you'll know if you can't trust them online. So just think about it. But there are parental controls that you can put in place. So this is everything from making sure that the young people or yourselves only access age-appropriate material, non-pornographic material, no swearing, etc. And you have that all the way through different things like the app monitoring service or your own apps that you can get for your devices. And finally, this is my favourite one. And I would say that everyone should do this. If you're getting a new device or a new app or a new account somewhere, do it together with a young person and go through it and talk to them as you're doing it, because you'll have all the terms and conditions there. I'm not going to go into 50 odd pages that you should read, but just give them a wee outline of what you think they should be doing online. And it's about trusting the young people to be online safely. But as we go back to the recognise, reject, report that we talked about earlier, if you're following these from an early age and you have that young person with the confidence, they're not going to be hugely upset if something online is happening, because they'll know how to deal with it because you've talked them through it. And that's what's important about being a digital parent. It's about actually understanding the risks out there and how you mitigate them. I'm not going to wrap everyone up in cotton wool, and I'm never going to advocate that, but we just have to know how to deal with things when they happen. So Mark, the next slide, please. So here we go. I'm trying to do a positive and negative here. And from the negative side, I'm going to cover this first, because there is a huge negative side about being online, especially for young people. I've read a few studies into this, you know, and young people's brains don't fully develop until they're 25 years old. And there's other things, but researchers have already started to establish a distinct link between depression and social media. We don't understand quite the cause and effect relationship between both, but we know that there's an intensification of symptoms, especially depression, a decrease in social anxiety, activities, and some loneliness. And that is exacerbated, especially with children who already have a form of anxiety or depression, low self-esteem. And we're just going to touch on a few of these as we go along. So, anxiety. Teens are really sort of emotionally invested in their social media accounts. And the way I want to say this, our young people who live online, their outward persona is everything that you see online about them. They want to be perfect online. The way it used to be, where everyone would be absolutely perfectly dressed, but their perceptions of perfect now has changed because of the online environment. All they're ever seeing is the perfect photograph, the perfect blog, the perfect writing, all the way through. And the attainment of reaching that perfection is so difficult to receive. But some children really, and young people, get a great amount of anxiety and feel pressure to have, you know, your perfect photograph, your well-written post. And they want to have a larger social circle online, and they feel that by having more friends, they're more popular, and that just leads to the thing about how they're growing up. But on the other side of that, if they create a faux pas online, then the anxiety levels go up because they're worried. If they're not getting as many likes as other people are getting, again, why aren't people liking me? Why aren't they liking my posts? And that all adds to the anxiety that these young people have. And then when you factor in things like cyberbullying, sextortion, or the cruel online behaviours that we see, you can see how it can become a toxic source of anxiety for many teens. And then you add in things like young people with ADHD or on the autism spectrum who see things as black and white and can't quite see, you know, the right and wrong of certain things. It exacerbates their loneliness. And then you've got your sleep deprivation. and that's all about worry. I got a little stat here. 1 in 5 children between the age of 11 and 15 wake up during the night to check their social media in case they're missing out on something. That has a huge effect, especially in schooling and their abilities to deal with the day. That study actually also revealed that girls were significantly more likely than boys to wake up and check their social media, especially on their phones. But then they report that they're feeling tired all the time, they're less happy all the time, and they're not getting a decent night's sleep, so that's disturbed. And that's all about, you know, worrying about making sure they're up to date with their social media. So sometimes it has a huge impact on their well-being. Envy, anxiety, again, that wreaks havoc in young teens' brains, and it might fixate them on why someone else has got more friends online than they have, and sometimes that leads on to feelings of anxiety or you know, inadequacy amongst them. And it's got to be realistic, and that's where, like I said earlier, we give them the realistic approach to being online when we've talked to them. And then finally, isolation. Now, isolation online, yes, does happen because people are scared of what they've said online and can be worried how other people take it. But when you look at it from a positive side, young people who are very shy, nervous in social settings sometimes go online and build their confidence. And that's where we'll talk about the positives now. So yes, we have a huge negative impact, but look at the positives that you have. If you have talked and got young people confident online on how to handle situations, this is going to be the confidence. They'll have a great amount of confidence, creative expression. We talked about, you know, the vlogger next door and the social activism. I've seen some of these kids create amazing products online, videos, editing, you name it, the ideas, the help that they do, and they really start thinking about things deeply and how to help people. So you have that whole social awareness, peer interaction. And I'll give you an example of this from my own son. My own son's now 10 years old. He's on the autism spectrum and did find it very difficult to interact with peers. He was quite a introverted boy. He loved trains, loved transport. But online, when we were going online together, we found like a forum of like-minded kids who formed this wee group, and they talk about trains, they talk about airplanes, they talk about journeys, and they all moderate this forum amongst themselves. So the group's now around 20 of them, and every night they're talking to each other about, you know, new trains or new planes or what they've seen on the internet. And these are boys aged between 8 and 12 who didn't have that amount of confidence to start with, but they are so protective of everyone in the group. They so look after. And if they find something, someone says something wrong, then the group themselves are banning people. And these are a group from age between 8 and 12 years old who are doing this online. But the confidence they get from that is huge. And the ability to know what's right and wrong is huge. And they're teaching each other. And they're only doing that online because partly they're anonymous online and they don't have that physical interaction. And it makes them more confident to deal with things. So there are a huge amount of benefits for that, especially with young people. We'll move on to the next slide, Mark. But this is something that we really have to make our young people aware of. And I'm going to go through why this is important. So your digital footprint, your cyber hygiene, what information is on about you online, be it children, be it your family, be it your colleagues at work. And we always say this, nothing stays hidden on the internet. See, if you post something, it'll stay there and it can be found. Why is it important? Just look how many things have came out because of what someone has posted in the past. I mean, you only have to look at things like, think of something very recently, the Djokovic scandal in Australia. Most of the information that you found out about Djokovic was found from his social media posts, how he had met a journalist and been interviewed after he had been allegedly infected with COVID. There was many stories out there after that, and that came from the social media posts. So whatever you're posting online, please be careful. You might have it locked down so that only your friends can see it. But what if your friends aren't locked down and they can share it then? So it becomes a huge thing. And I keep talking about, are you going to be proud of your digital footprint in the future? And why is that important? Well, firstly, especially for young people, if they're applying for a job, there are so many companies out there who are conducting, well, it's just due diligence to see what sort of digital footprint the person have to make sure they're the sort of person they want to work for the company. If you've posted something inappropriate online in the past, maybe a cyberbullying comment or a sextortion type thing, or you've agreed with things and you're not quite proud of it in the future, you might not get your job. But you know, you're getting that at university now. Universities are looking at people's digital footprints before they're getting on courses. And it's all about, you know, thinking about what you're liking online, what you're tweeting about, what you're speaking about. Don't do the scrolling. Don't be disrespectful to people. And think about, you know, exactly what you're posting online, because it will be there and it will influence your future. We've already seen countries refusing visas to people simply because what they've written about or what they've posted in the past. I can't go too far into that, but you know, you may not get on holiday in the future. So think about it. And the other thing I want to just touch on at this point is passwords and things like that. So the more people have information about you from online, the more people have the ability to try to scam you. So please be careful what you're putting online about yourselves and where you work, etc. Next slide, Mark, please. So I mentioned I was going to talk about this before. So what are parental controls and privacy settings online? One of the most important things that as digital advisors, we have to look at. So a parental monitoring app, why? Well, we're all really busy, but this way we can monitor our kids remotely. It means that we can see what apps are going into, what sites are looking at, make sure that they're joining the correct sites. If they want to visit a website, it might be that your privacy app or parental controls text you saying, would you allow them to visit google.net? So that's the kind of thing. It gives you an idea of how long your kids are online for, what they're visiting and who they're going. The only trouble is that you can go to, you know, your sort of device spying monitoring apps that can see everything that young people are doing. And it's up to individuals to decide what they think is best for their children. But most apps and most devices have parental controls on them, and think about it. It limits the amount of time that your kids can use online per day. It can give them times where it gets switched off. You can track the location, so a GPS. You can hear and see some of the messages that are sent. So it's just about understanding how much you trust your young people and how much you just want to check on them. I have different thoughts about this, parental controls, but it's up to the individuals to decide what they think's best. There's other things like there's geofencing alerts. I don't know if you've heard of them, but that's almost like, how can we put this? A young person who at the weekend goes with his friends out into the countryside to go drinking. You don't want them going to that place. What we're looking at there is that will send you an alert to say that that kid's in that, or that person is in that specific space that you don't want them to be in. So you'll be alerted about it. This works both ways because it's been used quite successfully for patients with dementia who go out on a walk, where it's that almost tracking device so that we can keep them safe where they are. And that's done with the individual's permission or from their family members looking at it. And then your privacy network, that's just about letting people know who sees what information about you is out there. So it's not just about what you've posted, but it's all the other things that are there, which your bots are collecting about what sites you visit, who you like, what posts you like. Or if you started looking for a new bathroom suite, well, we've got 20 adverts that we're just going to bombard you with about different companies that are selling them just now. And the privacy settings can help better protect you from that kind of incident. So, Mark, we'll go into the next slide. We wouldn't be the police if we didn't have a mnemonic. And this is a mnemonic that we use all the time. So, online, always think before you post. We say that to kids, but I say that to adults and I say that to my colleagues as well. I've had to say it to a couple of senior officers as well in the police. Think before you're posting anything. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Think. And if you cover those 5 things, and right from the start when we talked about, getting kids and young people confident online, if they do that, that is a huge benefit. But there's always that other side of things. So cyberbullying. I think everyone understands what bullying is, but just because we put the word cyber in front of it, I think it confuses people. So it's quite simply, it's the use of electronic communication to bully a person, typically by sending messages of an intimidating or threatening nature. Cyberbullying is basically bullying with the use of digital technologies. It can take place social media, messaging platforms, gaming platforms, mobile phones, everywhere. And basically what it is, it's repeated behaviour aimed at scaring, angering, shaming, frightening those who are targeted. And it's everything from like spreading lies about someone or posting embarrassing photos of them, sending hurtful messages or threats. Face-to-face bullying and cyberbullying a lot of the time do go hand in hand. But with cyberbullying, it leaves a digital footprint so we can basically see what's happening. Now, I've got a stat that says 12% of all young people say they've been cyberbullied. I would say that that's an awful lot higher than 12%, because you think about it, this can be anything from fat shaming to downright threats of violence online. But it's knowing how a young person can handle these things and knowing how anxious they get. But again, if we went back to my very beginning, I'm going to say my 3 R's again: recognise, reject and report. Again, how would that transpire with cyberbullying? report? Are they going to talk to their friends? Are they going to talk to a teacher? They're going to talk to a trusted adult about it, and then you can get things put in place to stop it. So again, it's giving our young people and young adults the confidence to say, this is wrong, I don't agree with this, I know what I should be doing, I'm going to reject that, and I'm going to speak to someone about that. And it's more about building the young people's confidence, because online, I've seen everything from a young person becoming anorexic and bulimic through fat shaming online. And, you know, all of that get exacerbated online because she was seeing the person as being that perfect image online, and she doesn't look like that. So she believed that she was fat, and other people are saying that. And it just snowballed and snowballed. But what we need to do is get that intervention in at a very early days to say, this isn't right, that's not a true representation of real life, and here's what we need to do. There is a great site in Scotland called Respect Me, which is the Scottish Government's anti-bullying website. There'll be signposting at the end of here, but I just want to mention that in there. If you want more information about cyberbullying, if you go into Respect Me website, it's got a lot of great information on there, and it tells you actually how to deal with things, how to talk to young people about it, and what's the best route to go down with it. And then the other thing that we find that's a huge issue just now is sharing images. And by that, we're talking about nude and semi-nude images, both of adults and young people. And young people are getting sexualized from a younger age. And this is happening on a regular basis. People are asking for this kind of thing. It is getting sent. It's not just secondary school pupils. It is happening in primary schools. And what we've got to do is actually tackle this head on, but it's through the education and it's through talking to young people what's right and what's wrong. But not all of it is done in a criminal way. Sometimes children are exploring their sexuality and their feelings, and some of them do that as almost like an experience to understand themselves and their bodies. So we've got to look at both sides of it. So we need to understand the risks that children might need to deal with. And is that going to be seeing or sharing violent conduct, sexual, pornographic content, false information, extreme views, you know, harmful behaviours online, self-harm, anorexia, suicide, you know, are they oversharing too much of their own information? Are they actively or unintentionally getting involved in bullying people or hurtful behaviour? Are they frightening people? You know, what are they posing behind fake profiles, you know, and creating a profile of a friend to do bad things to them? You know, sexual grooming does take place. Online, people can hide their identity and their age, and we do see that quite a lot. So there's mischief making from that, but there's also sexual grooming, there's stalking, there's blackmail and extortion, identity theft, hacking. So all of these things are happening. And again, doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. We've got to be aware of it. And it sounds quite scary, but just remember how much good is out there in the world and how much help is out there. And I want to keep making sure that people understand that yes, these things are happening, but if you're able to understand and recognize the risks, you can deal with them at a very early age. We've got to make sure that, you know, kids don't, and young people don't develop unrealistic ideas of what they know and what they can say online and how they should behave. So it's all of that kind of, you know, where do we go with this? how much trust do we put in our young people? Most of them know what is right and wrong. Most of them know what they should and shouldn't do. But it's getting that conversation with them and make sure that they're able to approach someone to tell them what they've found online, what they think is right and what they don't think is right, and have that through their peer network, through digital champions, through friends, through parents, through family members, and understand that all the way through. So just to give you an insight, these things do happen again, but let's make sure our young people know that it's happening out there and how to better protect themselves from it. Mark, we'll move on to the next slide, please. So gaming, again, to me, gaming is very much like social media, because most of the games nowadays are interactive. You've seen the young people with their headsets on and either talking or typing as they're playing games to other people online. But what we've got to realise is, do they know these other people online? Or are these complete strangers? Does bullying happen online? Of course it does. Does it happen through gaming? Yes. And do people get targeted all the time? You know, do you think that you're a good player at something, so someone who's slightly better keeps targeting you and killing you, gets you more frustrated, and then you take it out on them? Then, you know, some children and young people find it hard to keep their emotions when they're online, and some become quite destructive. And it's all about making sure that the gaming is fun for them and doesn't become that addiction where, you know, they're on 24 hours a day all the time. And I'm going to again give you an example for my son. When he was 7, he suffered from Guillain-Barré syndrome, which basically affected his nerves and his spine. And he went from a healthy 7-year-old, within 3 days he became paralysed and couldn't walk and couldn't lift his arms. It was a severe reaction to a flu jag that he'd got, but it basically attacked his blood cells and damaged his nerves. Luckily, he recovered fully from it, but he was in hospital for 3 weeks, and it was a horrible time for everyone. So then he had to learn how to walk again, how to crawl again, how to ride a bike again. And obviously, physiotherapy for a 7-year-old is very tiring. But what we had was an old Wii, Nintendo Wii game, which was an absolutely amazing piece of kit. We had a balance board on it. So part of his recovery was playing online, and we were playing online with him as he was doing his exercising. So again, that gives you an example where that started as therapy for him, but it became a gaming time as a family. And now every Sunday we go online as a family and play together for an hour. It's great family time, kind of like we used to do when we were younger, playing cards or played Ludo or Monopoly. We're doing online, but it just builds up that family connection. Next slide, Mark. And just so that you understand here, that's the extent of it. 48% of all 11 to 16-year-olds said that they've seen pornography online. That's quite worrying, you know, but we have to get with the realism and know that that's happening out there. A lot of the time it's unintentional. A lot of the time it's an error. Sometimes they're deliberately looking at it. But again, some pornography out there is absolutely horrific. And what we've got to do is try to make sure people understand it's out there and young people are seeing it. 7% of 11 to 16-year-olds have told, in that survey, said they've shared a naked or semi-naked image of them. Kids as young as 10 are finding pornography through their smartphones, you know. And it's important that we actually talk to the young people about the sexualized content that they see, including online pornography. And it's to help them interpret it and understand the information there, so they develop a healthy attitude and a positive attitude towards themselves, towards relationships, and towards their own body and sex in the future. I think I'm running out of time, so I'll quickly move on. Mark, if you got the next one. Yep. This is some of the guidance here. However, I've got another document, and if it's okay with Aaron, I'm going to forward it to Aaron and see if he can make use of it. It goes into most of these topics in a bit more detail and gives you links to where you can find the help and a lot of the things to look out for. So I think it would be ideal if I sent that document on, and if Aaron had the time to possibly distribute it, we would appreciate it. I think you've heard enough from me, so I'm going to open up to questions now. And I think it's time for me to be quiet, and I'm sure Mark will be quite happy to answer the questions.